Hey, GRI201. Hey, Jody. Welcome and hope you enjoy this video. So my name is Eliad Jesse and I started as a TMCC student studying psychology, transferred to UNR. Been doing 2 years here at HGFS major and graduating this December. I consider myself as a white male, born and raised in Israel, half Israeli, half American.
What's up, GRI? My name is Jesse, and I am a fifth-year student here at UNR, originally from transferring in from the Colleges of Nevada in Las Vegas. I am currently majoring in mechanical engineering, and I identify myself as a Latino male. Kind of just lay a groundwork or a foundation of what we're going to be talking about. I wanted to go over some of the statistics when it comes to race on this campus. This was compiled by the Center Every Student, Every Story, and it looks and breaks down ethnicity rates on campus for the 2017 school year. In the 2017 school year, we had about 21,657 students in total, undergraduate students in total. Of that, white students made up the vast majority at 12,462. The jump between white students and that number of students versus the next class of students, which is Hispanic, is stark. That Hispanic students made up about 4,165. Next being Asian students at 1,643. And it just kind of gets smaller and smaller from there. And you see that the gaps between Hispanics and Asian Hispanics and the other classes isn't particularly that that large versus the jump between white students and literally any other group of students out there. So that alone right there shows us on the student side the differences when it comes to this being a predominantly white institution. Then you look at the faculty numbers and they're even graver in that of faculty, 72% of the faculty on campus is white, with the next class for faculty being Asian faculty members who only made up about 9%. So already now you have white faculty making up 72%. And again, literally every other classification doesn't even pop 10% of faculty.
Yeah, and these rates actually get worse as we look in grad school. So same statistics, they came from every student, every story. Looking at grad school again, 2017 year, we had 3,309 students in total. Out of that, we had 2,001 white students, followed by 380 Hispanic students, with a little number of 189 Asian students. That just shows you who is accepted, who is not accepted to grad school, who gets the opportunity to move on with their degree and go beyond those entry-level job positions that you can get after you graduate with your first degree. The representation here obviously is not even, is not fair, and there's a lot that needs to be done in order to allow more minorities into grad school.
Mm-hmm. So all that to kind of get to the point of UNR is unequivocally a predominantly white institution. It is a white space because of the fact that you have an administration, which is already, like I said, with faculty, you got 72% white. The majority of the students, both undergrad and graduate students, it's a large percentage higher than any other group of students. So with that, we wanted to get into this conversation of experiences, and I wanted to jump to Eliad and ask him what your experience has been being a student at a predominantly white institution and being a student who is perceived white but then also not.
You see, Jesse, you say perceived. Perceived myself, I perceive as white, but as far as campus climate, as far as UNR students, I don't feel like I was never ever perceived as white. As a matter of fact, people did not even know what I am, who I am, and where I'm from, which in regards to me created a lot of identity issues and developmental issues here as far as race. Like I said, I consider myself white, but when you're not viewed as white by others, it's very hard to fit yourself into that picture. Therefore, many problems with isolation were created for me as a UNR student throughout the 2 years that I've been here. How about yourself, Jesse, as a Hispanic student here at UNR?
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience?
This UNR was my second real, full experience of being in a very white space. Coming in from CSN, which was very much more diverse than what UNR is, by sort of the chance of it being a 2-year institution. I had more faculty members there that were people of color. I had more faculty members who understood issues of discrimination and race that I could go and talk to them about, versus here at UNR where a lot of those topics don't get discussed and there aren't many places where you can have those discussions outside of a class like GRI or outside of places like the center. As a mechanical engineering student, I am surrounded predominantly by white students. My faculty members, most of the head members of the administration within the College of Engineering are white men. There are a good percentage of Asian professors in the engineering program, but many of them typically are immigrants who, while they have a grasp of this sort of racial experience and discrimination, they may not have the same sort of experiences that a lot of us students who are students of color and our American students can have, so like relate to or talk about. So it became an issue of just not feeling like I was welcome here on campus. Um, and that leads me to the discussion of when it comes to discrimination. I don't know about what your experience has been when it comes to discrimination here at UNR, or if you've had any.
So yeah, discrimination, ties up a little bit with white space, I would say, and because UNR is such a great white space, discrimination was not personally viewed, just because honestly I tried to shush myself and like blend in, and not be a sore thumb. So I guess in many ways that's probably why I didn't receive personal discrimination like that. But how about yourself, Jesse? Did you experience any discrimination on campus?
Yeah. So I don't blend in. I kind of a parent. And that has led to issues regarding campus police. I've pretty much every year since I've been here, I've been stopped by campus police. I've always talked about this when it comes to when I talk to other students in regards to my feelings here at UNR, that I don't even feel comfortable coming to campus without a backpack on, because the moments that I can remember being stopped quickly by campus PD was because I was walking through campus and I just didn't happen to be carrying my backpack. And so now all of a sudden it's a question of who are you? Why are you here? Right? That then leads into instances of discrimination that I've faced in my own College of Engineering, of feeling that I wasn't viewed in the same light or respect as a lot of my other peers, because they saw me as the brown kid, one of the brown kids in class. I've had this constant feeling of um, sort of being looked down upon and looked at as like I'm not as smart as my peers. It's caused tension between me and professors a few times that I would go to a professor and talk and try and find answers to questions. It became kind of obvious that their responses to me were seemingly like either dumbed down because they thought I wasn't smart enough to really grasp what they were trying to talk about, or it was like they didn't really want to try and help me because what was the point? That's what at least what my read on the situations were. And then an instance that just came to mind right now when it comes to discrimination on campus was an experience I had with the vice president of students here on campus, who I remember having a conversation about being a transfer student, being a student of color who worked his way from dropping out of high school to get to UNR, and her response, the vice president of students, her response being, "Well, you weren't supposed to be a student here," you know, which kind of put it in my mind that like, yeah, you're right, I'm not supposed to be here. So that was my experience when it comes to discrimination here on campus. And then you get into discussions on the actual acts of racial violence on campus. You have the swastikas that were carved around campus. You have the instances of police officer who dressed up as Colin Kaepernick. You've got the students who sat and took a knee during the football games, who were harassed by white students. All these different experiences of racial discrimination and violence on the university level of things. And I kind of wanted to talk a bit about what your response as a student who isn't really particularly involved in a lot of the political stuff that I know I've made it a point to get involved in, how you've perceived the university's response to a lot of this sort of racial violence and animosity.
Okay, that's a great question, Jesse. See, like you said, I did not really participate in many of these organizations, sororities, fraternities, and so on and so forth. The fact is that I have noticed the discrimination happening on campus, and I have noticed the response from campus officials, which, in my opinion, really did not make up to what it was supposed to do. Let's take, for example, one incident you did not bring up, Jesse, with the cop pulling over the football player and telling him that if he was even bigger, he would shoot him, or something like that. In my opinion, this was not handled well in any way at all. This police officer should just been out of the force immediately. Follow up with the swastika, for example. That campus allowed the student to graduate a year later, with no repercussions. That doesn't make any sense to me. How people can act racially discriminating and then get away with it easily like that. But again, it makes sense because we live in such a white space, because we're students in such a white space, and people who are committing these crimes are predominantly white.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Jesse, how about you? What do you think about campus response on racial activity?
Having kind of worked in the backgrounds of a lot of these things and talked to a lot of administration, I can say that my feelings about the response I've been disappointed consistently, and it kind of like further emphasizes this feeling of like not belonging. And I know that I'm not alone in that feeling and response towards the university's handling of a lot of these acts. I know that for myself, knowing that university they hasn't really made a whole lot of effort to find and catch the people who were responsible for some of the swastikas, but at the same time made a conscious effort to really try and crack down on the students who were posting up flyers saying that UNR protects races, or that the flyers that went up over Black History Month. The response was very different. UNR really wanted to go after them and charge them, and when they found out they couldn't, they were upset about it. Meanwhile, like I said, I've worked in a lot of those spaces. I am someone who should have at least heard some sort of inkling from administration that they were looking to press charges about swastikas, and I never heard that. I never heard them really go in after trying to find out who did it. I know of certain times where the university has tried to, like, when they come at like those flyers that went up over Black History Month, I know that the university has made efforts to try and get security footage to see who went up and who posted these flyers, which they couldn't do because legally there was nothing wrong with what was happening. Meanwhile, acts of actual vandalism and like the carving up of Lincoln Hall with a swastika into it, there was no cameras. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. And so it's just sort of compounds onto this feeling of not belonging here, which leads us into the discussion on how UNR also tends to view racism in the form of racial capitalism. Did you want to go over real quick?
So, I mean, we're looking at racial capitalism. UNR overall, like you said, Jesse, is trying to cover up their own image, make themselves look good in the eyes of others so people can come in, because overall this is a business and they're trying to conduct business, and the best way to conduct business is making yourself look good. Mm-hmm. The fact is that while all the efforts are going into making UNR look good, we are forgetting about the minority students that are actually suffering on campus and are not getting any treatment or any resources to handle their issues.
So for example, one of the things we talked about between me and Eliud was this issue of the Hispanic Civic Institution label that UNR is trying to attain, right? What comes with that is a lot of benefits. What comes with that is a lot of money that would get put into the school because the school serves Hispanic students, right? And in order to become a Hispanic Civic Institution, all that's really necessary is that you make up about between 15 to 25% of your student population is Hispanic, right? The disgusting part about this is that they are able to get all these funds. When they apply and if they get it, they will be getting all these funds. Yet what we've seen in regards to their lack of care towards minority students, towards Hispanic students, is you have them trying to attain this extra funds to be a Hispanic Civic Institution. At the same time, they allowed for the complete defunding and loss of the Hispanic Resource Center on campus. If any of you remember when we went down for that demonstration where Jody laid down and had her foot put over his neck, right next to him was a door that is labeled Hispanic Research Center, right? It was so, if you noticed, it was locked and closed. And at one point, that was the place where you had groups like the Latino Student Advisory Board go and meet and have discussions on Hispanic issues on campus. And now there's nothing going on in there anymore. There was a letter that was released by someone who used to work there, who talked about Iris West, who spoke about their own resignation from that department because of the lack of funds that were going into it, because of the fact that Mark Johnson, the president of the university, consistently denied them access to resources. Yet at the same time, we're talking about a university and an administration that is trying to call themselves Hispanic serving. So in that, we see again the way that the university handles and deals with issues of race. That for them, it is really only how does this benefit us, as opposed to how can we be an institution that helps to serve underrepresented students on campus? How can we do more to provide resources for students who typically aren't what, like I said, what the vice president of the university called me, which is the type of student who goes to this campus, right? So this is something that needs to be looked at, because as of right now, what's only being done is fluff service. If you wanted to kind of go into that.
Yeah, and Jesse, like you said, how UNR is trying to, make themselves look good and make themselves look like a diverse campus, which in reality really is not, because you've seen the statistics. What is being done, again, it's just to make UNR look pretty. They're doing presentations on diversity. They're doing diversity summits. They're doing cultural representation with clubs and organizations, but that's very limited. Mm-hmm. That representation that we're going over is going over clothing, mm-hmm. is going over food items. Mm-hmm. It's not going over the basic culture. It's not going over the history mm-hmm. of what this culture is about. That's not teaching anyone anything in that matter, and not only not teaching anyone anything, but also not making any progress on campus. So, until we will start looking at personal examples on personal levels of discrimination, of racism, we won't get beyond that point of making UNR look pretty and diverse. But in reality, we want to make it pretty and diverse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know that I have gone to a couple of those events, the diversity summits and all that. And yeah, typically what it is administration kind of patting themselves on the back for just the having a student here who is from such and such culture or such and such minority group. But that's it. Like I said, when we talk about the Hispanic Resource Center or Research Center, when we talk about places like the center, every student, every story, first off, that name, me and Jody have talked about that in regards, because when I first came to this campus, it was a Center for Cultural Diversity, right? This changed to every student, every story happened because students who weren't culturally diverse, so white students, were upset and feeling like they were left out of this environment. This just kind of goes to show that the university is more willing to placate towards their predominant white student population, as opposed to trying to find resources and ways to help out students who are completely underrepresented on this campus. So this kind of leads into what Eliad and I have been discussing about what should be done on campus in regards to resources and training. If you want to go into it first.
Yeah, so obviously, like we said, personal examples. We need to increase resources in diversity clubs. We need to increase resources for non-white students in general. Maybe training to police officers, training to white students. Maybe an HDFS class to every student on campus would not hurt. Maybe a GRI class for every student on campus would not hurt. Things like that can bring awareness not only to minorities but also to white people in general, which is very much needed on campus.
I know that something that I've always fought for was this idea of more resources for a lot of these places like the center. The resources for a.
1 second, please. We have this for 1 second. 1 second, please. Sorry about that, guys. We'll just keep going from here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse.
So the idea of resources for like these groups, like the center, like the Hispanic Research Center, providing more funding towards those groups to create spaces where students of color and underrepresented students and student communities can find mentors, can find places where they can see themselves on campus. besides just these small little compartments that we have right now and these underfunded institutions that we have right now.
So yeah, I mean, thank you guys for listening. Go over real quick, just, increased faculty members that are non-white, increased resources, increased training. I mean, just pay attention. That's all that needs to be done. Pay attention to details and not the overall picture. But guys, it's been a pleasure presenting to you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. It was insightful for you, and thank you again for listening.